Hey there, it's Hillary, and today I'm going to be doing the mid-year freakout tag. I did this tag last year, I think around the middle of July, and so now we're at the beginning of July, and I'm going to do it again this year. I think a couple of the questions this time are different. Some of them don't seem very familiar, and I think I've seen like 2 different tags where it's 2 different questions, so I'm thinking maybe one is from last year and one is from this year. There are 15 questions, and I'm going to go ahead and answer them to the best of my ability. So question number 1 is the best book that you've read in 2018. So I have chosen Renegades by Marissa Meyer. I am a huge Lunar Chronicles fan. It is probably my favorite series, maybe even more so than Harry Potter, if that could be even like horrible to say, but I just love the Lunar Chronicles. So when I read Renegades, I'm pretty sure I read this back in January, and I'm still thinking about it. I just love it so much, and I just think she is an amazing author. I am one of the few people, I think, well, maybe not few, but I am one of the people that is definitely on the hype train that this series got expanded to 3 books, and it's going to be a trilogy now instead of just 2. I'm super excited. I loved this book. Definitely suggest you read it. And not only was it like the best book that I read, but I also got one of the Barnes & Noble autographed copies. So that was just super exciting because she's one of my favorite authors. So to get an autographed book by one of my favorite authors, so awesome. Question number 2 is the best sequel that you read in 2018. This one was a toss-up for me. I think it either comes down to Daughter of the Siren Queen, which I did really enjoy, but I also read through it super quickly because I was so engrossed in the story. So I think either that one or One Dark Throne. I really enjoyed that book as well, and I am super excited to read the 3rd one in the series that comes out later this year. So I think it's a toss-up between both of those. They were both 5-star books for me, and I'd say those 2 are probably the favorites that I've read so far this year. Number 3 is a new release that you haven't read yet but want to. For this one, for me, it is My Plain Jane. I just recently read My Lady Jane, and I absolutely loved it. Another 5-star read for me. It was absolutely hilarious, so I am super excited to get to read My Plain Jane, and this one just recently came out, so it's really not surprising that I haven't read it yet, but I am super excited to read that one. A lot of the books that have sequels that are coming out aren't out yet, so this one was a pretty easy question for me to read because I felt like either I've read all the sequels that are coming out or they're not out yet. Number 4 is the most anticipated release for the second half of the year. For this one, going back to my favorite book of the year, my most anticipated sequel is Arch Enemies. I'm super excited to see where this story is going. It's not getting released until like November, but I'm still very excited, and I've been thinking about this book all year, and I'm sure when the next one comes out, I'm gonna have another year to think about it while I'm waiting for the next one. But I love this story. It's so good. I love the idea that the main character is a villain and she is like trying to infiltrate a superhero group. I just love it. I just think the idea behind it is so great, and I cannot wait to see what happens in the next one because of the way that the first one left off. I think it's going to be amazing. Question number 5 is your biggest disappointment of 2018. I have to say that I think my biggest disappointment is The Mothers by Britt Bennett. This is a book that we read for book club, and I was super disappointed. I did not like the story at all. It's one of the lowest rated books that I've rated this year, and probably since I've been using Goodreads. I only rated it 2 stars, and I felt like I was honestly being really generous giving it 2 stars because I absolutely hated the book, and it's really odd for me to hate our book club book that much. Question number 6 is your biggest surprise of the year. Now for this one, I picked Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. I picked this one mainly because when I started reading it, I had it in my mind that I was not going to like this book, and I honestly considered DNFing it because I just had it set in my mind that it was like a Harry Potter ripoff and I wasn't going to like it. But I'm so glad that I stuck with it and continued reading it, because I ended up really liking it, and I ended up thinking it was super funny, and I just thought it was an awesome take on the chosen one trope, and I ended up really enjoying the book. That was my biggest surprise, because I was 100% set that I was going to hate this book when I started reading it. Question number 7 is your favorite debut author or new to you author. And so I picked 2 authors, and it's honestly crazy the authors that I picked, because they're not new authors, but this year was the first time that I had read any of their books. So the first of the 2 is actually Rick Riordan. I've become a huge Rick Riordan fan, but I actually had never read any of his books until January of this year, and then I actually read almost all of his books in January. I've been slowly reading more of them over the year as they come out, or as I've been collecting more, but I had never read any Rick Riordan until this year, and I probably read 10 books just by Rick Riordan in January. And my other favorite new author, I guess you could say, is Leigh Bardugo. I had never read any Leigh Bardugo either, and this year I have read Shadow and Bone, I read Wonder Woman, so I've read like a lot of different books that she has written, and I enjoyed both of them a lot, and I just think it's such a compliment to her that she can write like 2 different types of books. Yes, they're both fantasy, but I remember when I did my wrap-up video, when I read 2 of her books, I said that it's such an awesome book that she was able to take Wonder Woman, who is so well known, and she put this new spin on it, and then she's taken her Grisha trilogy, which is something totally new that she's pulled out of her head, and she was able to do an amazing job telling both stories. Number 8 is your newest fictional crush. And this one, I almost wanted to like cop out and say that I didn't have one, but if I had to pick one, I feel like it would be Nikolai, who is introduced in Siege and Storm, I believe. I don't think he's in the first book at all. I think he's introduced in this one. And I just really like him as a character. I love his like cocky attitude, and I love his sarcasticness, and I love his sense of humor, and I feel like a lot of his like sarcastic sense of humor reminds me of my husband, so maybe that's why I enjoy Nikolai as a character so much. But I'm currently reading the 3rd book, and something happens to him in the 3rd book, so I'm curious to see where that goes and what happens to him. But I wouldn't say he's so much as like a fictional crush as like I'm gonna be like I would trade my husband in for him, or like I wish he was a real person because I would date him. He's not so much a fictional crush that way, but he is like the closest character that I would say that I would have a fictional crush on, so I'm using him as my choice. The next question, number 9, is your newest favorite fictional character. And for this one, I feel like I went back to Rick Riordan and I said Percy Jackson and some other characters from the Percy Jackson series, because Percy Jackson is just such a funny character, and I wouldn't really say I have a crush on him because he's like a very young, like not very young, but he's like a young teenage boy, so that would just be kind of weird, but I just love him as a character. I just think he's so fun, and honestly I just love the way that all the characters in the books interact with each other. So honestly I feel like I would say like all the characters from the Percy Jackson series, and they're just such fun characters to read about, it's hard to not like them. Number 10 is A Book That Made You Cry. Now this one, I can't really say that it made me cry because I usually don't cry when I read books. I actually can't remember the last book that I cried when I read it. So I picked the book that was the closest to making me cry, and that is The Sun Is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon. This book, it almost had me. Like, I was so close to crying. It wasn't even funny, but like I was almost there, and I'm not even sure if like it was tears of sadness or tears of joy at this point, but like it almost made me cry, and I feel like it almost made me cry multiple times, but I was able to like rein it in and keep it together. But that was the closest that a book has come in a long time, and I even wrote that in my Goodreads review. Number 11 is A Book That Made You Happy, and for this one I picked My Lady Jane. I said earlier when I was talking about the sequel, the book was so funny and I found myself laughing out loud, which honestly I don't normally do that either. Like, I'm honestly like an unemotional person when I read, but this book, it had me cracking up. Like, people are turning to look at me while I'm reading because I am laughing out loud. Like, it was so funny. It just even brings a smile to my face talking about it right now. I just love Jane and I love G. They were such fun characters to read about, and I just love it. So I think that's part of the reason why I'm so excited to read the sequel, because I'm hoping that we get some of this humor and some of this excitement and some of this joy that I got from the first book. I'm hoping I get that in the next one. Number 12 is your favorite book to movie adaptation. Okay, so this one is hard for me because, one, I don't really watch movies like or TV or anything like that, and two, I honestly try to stay away from book to movie adaptations because I feel like they upset me most of the time. So I feel like the only two book to movie adaptations I have watched this year are The Hunger Games, but that doesn't count because it's not the first time I've watched it. Actually, there are three. Divergent, which I didn't care for, and it actually made me not even want to watch the other two movies, which is horrible because I absolutely love the books, and Percy Jackson and The Lightning Thief. And I did not like that one as well. Like, I was so mad after watching that movie. Like, even down to the slightest, like, the fact that Annabeth was not a blonde in the movie, like, just little things like that. Like, everything upsets me. So I don't want to pick any of those three things. I will say the one that I'm probably most excited to see is Ready Player One. But honestly, like I said, I'm so scared. I wanted to see this one in the movie theater, but by the time I got a chance to go see it, it wasn't out anymore, or they were only doing like one showing of it, and I wasn't able to go see it. So I do want to see this one, and I'm very excited. I'm just afraid they're gonna ruin my movie. Number 13 is your favorite video that you've done this year, and I'm actually gonna try to link both of my videos in the comments down below. I think it was a toss-up between the Book on Haul challenge, which I enjoyed doing that one. I feel like sometimes you need some like prompts to take books off of your shelf that you're not gonna read and you really don't think about it. And honestly, a lot of us probably try to not unhaul books because they're like our babies. But if it's things that you're not gonna read, then it's good to take them off so that someone else who will read them or someone else can enjoy them. So I really enjoyed that challenge. I ended up taking a lot of books off of my shelf. I donated them to my local Goodwill, which everybody knows that's one of my favorite places to shop. So I was able to give back. And I think my other favorite, it was a toss-up between two. It was a series that I need to read / complete. I think that one was really fun to go through and look at this bookshelf behind me and say, oh my gosh, you're such a slacker. You haven't read this series and you haven't read this series. You need to do it. So that one I think was my other favorite one because it really was like, hey, you need to read some stuff. Like, I do read. I read a lot actually. but it's like I haven't read any of these series because I've been trying to collect all the books in them before I read them, and I just need to do it. Number 14 is the most beautiful book cover that you have bought or received this year. So this one was hard for me. I was in a toss-up between Renegades, which I already used for a book for a question, so I didn't want to pick that one again, or Warstorm. And so I went ahead and picked Warstorm because of the hollow foil, and I just really liked this one. I liked that it was a dark blue. I felt like all the other covers to the book series were so light, and this one was super dark, and I really enjoyed this one. I thought about picking Legendary, but I honestly was kind of disappointed in that cover a little bit compared to Caraval's cover, so I didn't want to pick that one. But I feel like Warstorm they've stuck to a theme with all of their book covers, and that I really enjoyed this one. Plus, I love the paging on the inside. Like, I know that's not a cover, but I think they did a really good job of making their book look really pretty. I honestly buy a lot of my books with paperback covers, so sometimes paperback covers aren't as pretty as hardbacks. Number 15 is a book you need to read by the end of the year. So for me, I have chosen two, and honestly, it's series. I am going to read the Narnia series, and I'm going to read the Mortal Instruments series. I am going to read both of these by the end of the year. It is my goal. I'm honestly going to try to read this one this month, and who knows when I'm going to get to this one, because they're long books, and there's a lot of them to read. But I am going to do it by the end of this year. I need some encouragement, but I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. So thank you for joining me for the mid-year freakout tag. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please feel free to leave me a like. And if you liked this video so much that you'd like to see more by me, please consider subscribing to my channel. And I will see you guys in my next video.